You don't need to do anything. Just listen and let go.
The mansion's security system beeped 3 times when the power flickered. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows in uneven bursts, like someone was throwing buckets of water at the glass. "Generators online," a voice said from the hallway. The house manager walked into the living room, tapping his tablet. "We're good for 12 hours if this gets worse." One of the guests sat forward on the couch, rubbing her temples. "I hate storms like this. Sounds like the whole place is coming apart." The house manager shrugged. "Built to last. Steel frame, triple-paned glass. You could probably drop a tree on it." A distant thud made everyone pause. It wasn't thunder. Something had hit the roof. "Probably just a branch," the house manager said, checking his tablet again. His expression didn't change. "Nothing to worry about." The guest didn't look convinced. She kept staring at the ceiling. "You sure it wasn't something else?" "Positive," he said. "The sensors would have alerted me if it was serious." The storm outside groaned louder, drowning out whatever else she might have said. The lights flickered again but held. "Are you sure the generator's stable?" another guest asked from across the room. He had been silent until now. The house manager glanced at his tablet. "It's running at 70%. More than enough." A second thud hit the roof, harder this time. The ceiling light swayed slightly. Everyone looked up. The guest who had spoken first clenched her fists on the couch cushion. "That wasn't a branch." The house manager frowned at his tablet, tapping the screen twice. Wind speed just jumped to 60 miles per hour. "Could be debris." From the hallway, a faint creaking noise started, slow and rhythmic. The silent guest stood up abruptly. "What's that?" Before anyone could answer, the security system beeped again, a single, sharp note. The house manager's head snapped toward the door. Motion detected on the east balcony. The woman on the couch didn't move. "You said no one was out there." The house manager tapped his tablet faster. "There shouldn't be." The silent guest took a step toward the hallway. "Maybe a bird got blown into the railing." The creaking noise stopped. The security system beeped again, twice this time. The house manager's voice dropped lower. "Now it's inside." The silent guest froze mid-step. "What do you mean inside?" The woman on the couch finally stood up, backing toward the center of the room. "Check the cameras." The house manager swiped his tablet screen quickly. "Hallway cameras offline. East balcony feed is glitching." The security system beeped 3 more times in rapid succession, higher pitched now, almost urgent. The silent guest took another step toward the hallway, then stopped. "Shouldn't we call someone?" The house manager kept tapping his tablet, but his fingers moved faster now. "I'm locking down the east wing." The woman by the couch grabbed her phone from the coffee table. "I'm checking the outdoor cameras." The creaking started again, louder this time, like something heavy dragging itself down the hall. The silent guest turned back toward the group. "I think we should stay together." The house manager didn't look up from his tablet. The security feed's still down. I can't see anything past the living room. The woman gripped her phone tighter. The outdoor cameras aren't working either. It's just static. From somewhere deeper in the house, the security system let out one long, unbroken beep. The silent guest backed toward the center of the room. That's not a motion alert. The house manager tapped his tablet screen harder. System's not responding. The woman kept staring at her phone. My signal's gone too. The creaking sound stopped abruptly, replaced by something scraping against hardwood floors. The silent guest tilted his head toward the hallway. Did you hear that? The house manager finally lowered his tablet. I need to check the east wing manually. The woman grabbed his arm. You can't go out there alone. The silent guest stepped between them and the doorway. Then none of us go. The scraping noise started again, closer this time. The house manager reached for the panic button on his tablet. Nothing happened. The silent guest kept his eyes locked on the hallway. That doesn't sound like wind. The woman held her phone up higher, as if that would bring the signal back. We could try the landline in the study. The scraping stopped right outside the living room doorway. The house manager slowly lowered his tablet. Don't move. The silent guest exhaled through his nose, keeping his shoulders rigid. Too late for that. The woman's phone slipped from her fingers and clattered on the hardwood. No one bent to pick it up. From the hallway, something tapped against the door frame. 3 quick, deliberate knocks. The house manager's hand twitched toward his tablet again, then froze mid-air. That wasn't wind. The silent guest took a slow step back, his heel brushing the edge of the couch. We need to get out of this room. The woman's breath came faster now. There's another door behind the bar. Leads to the kitchen. The scraping noise started up again, this time moving past the doorway and down the hall toward the east wing. The house manager's jaw tightened. It's heading for the lockdown point. The silent guest shifted his weight onto the balls of his feet. We need to go now. The woman nodded toward the bar. If we move fast, we can make it to the kitchen before it circles back. The house manager hesitated, then jerked his chin toward the bar. Go. I'll stay here in case it comes back this way. The silent guest grabbed his arm. No. You're coming with us. The scraping noise paused at the end of the hallway. The woman pointed toward the bar. Now or never. The house manager hesitated, then nodded once. They moved as one toward the bar, keeping their steps quiet. The silent guest reached the swinging door first, holding it open just enough to slip through. The woman followed, her shoes tapping lightly against the tile floor behind them. The scraping started again, slower this time, like whatever was out there had stopped to listen. The house manager paused halfway through the door. Wait. Did you feel that? The silent guest turned back just as the floor trembled underfoot, not enough to knock anyone over, but enough to make the glasses behind the bar rattle against each other. The woman steadied herself against the counter. Was that an earthquake? The house manager shook his head, eyes locked on the swinging door. No. That came from inside the house. The silent guest pressed his ear against the kitchen wall. Something's moving in the east wing. The woman turned the faucet handle. No water came out. Pipes are dry. That's not right. From the hallway, the scraping noise suddenly accelerated, moving fast toward the kitchen door. The house manager grabbed the silent guest's shoulder. Don't look back. Just run. The woman fumbled with the lock on the pantry door, her hands shaking. There's a service elevator through here. Staff use it for deliveries. The silent guest didn't move. Elevators are death traps in situations like this. The house manager pushed past them both. Not this one. It's on a separate power grid. He punched the call button. Nothing happened. The scraping sound reached the kitchen doorway. The silent guest backed against the pantry shelves. We need another way out. The woman pointed to a narrow door beside the fridge. Laundry chute. Leads to the basement utility room. The house manager yanked the door open. A stale draft rushed up from the darkness below. It's tight, but will fit. The silent guest grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer. The beam flickered when he clicked it on. Who goes first? The scraping noise reached the kitchen threshold. Something heavy shifted against the door frame. The woman stepped forward without hesitation. Me. I'm smallest. She swung her legs into the chute and vanished into the dark before anyone could argue. The house manager turned toward the silent guest. You next. I'll keep watch. His fingers drummed against the door frame, glancing back toward the kitchen entrance where the scraping sound had paused again. The silent guest hesitated, then slid into the chute feet first. The flashlight beam bounced wildly as he descended, illuminating rusted metal walls slick with condensation. Above him, the house manager gripped the chute's edge. His shadow stretched long against the ceiling as something heavy dragged itself across the kitchen floor toward him. The flashlight beam caught the woman's outstretched hand below. Hurry up, she whispered. The silent guest landed hard on concrete, twisting to shine the light back up the chute. Metal groaned overhead as the house manager swung his legs in. The scraping sound reached the chute opening just as he let go. The flashlight flickered when the house manager hit the ground. He rolled to his feet immediately, staring up at the dark rectangle above them. Don't look, he said. The woman grabbed the silent guest's sleeve. Which way now? The utility room stretched beyond the flashlight's reach, filled with the hum of dormant machinery. The house manager wiped his palms on his pants. Boiler room connects to the underground garage. Emergency exits there. A dull thud echoed from the chute above them. The silent guest turned the flashlight off. Move. Quiet. The woman's shoe scuffed concrete as she stepped forward. I can't see anything. The house manager's breathing sounded louder in the dark. Left wall. Follow it. The silent guest reached out, his fingers brushing cold concrete. He took slow steps, keeping his shoulder against the wall. The woman's sleeve rustled as she moved. There's a door handle. Her fingers closed around cold metal from the chute above. Something heavy dropped into the utility room with a wet thump. The house manager grabbed both their arms. "Don't stop walking." The woman turned the handle, but the door stuck halfway. "It's jammed." The silent guest wedged his shoulder against it, pushing until the hinges gave with a sharp groan. Behind them, something scraped across the utility room floor, slow and deliberate. The house manager shoved them through the doorway. "Go straight for the boiler room." The silent guest stumbled forward, catching himself against a metal pipe. The flashlight beam swung wildly across concrete walls and coiled cables. "There's another door ahead." The woman reached it first, pushing against the steel frame. It didn't budge. Locked from the other side. From the darkness behind them came a soft click, like a latch releasing. The house manager spun around, blocking their view. "Don't look. Just keep moving along the wall." The silent guest ran his hands along the doorframe until his fingers found a keypad. "Emergency override code." The house manager stepped closer, shielding the keypad with his body as he typed. "Owner's birthday. Should work." A red light blinked twice before turning green. The lock clicked open just as something heavy shifted in the utility room behind them. The woman pushed the door inward, her breath shallow. "Hurry." The house manager didn't move right away. He kept his back to them, facing the darkness they'd just come through. "Go. I'll catch up." The silent guest grabbed his elbow. "No. You first." He shoved the house manager toward the open door with more force than necessary. The woman slipped through first, holding the door just wide enough for the others. The silent guest followed, keeping the flashlight beam pointed at the floor. The house manager hesitated one last second before stepping through and pulling the door shut behind them. The boiler room smelled like oil and rust. Pipes lined the walls, some dripping with condensation. The flashlight beam caught a red emergency light mounted near the ceiling, its bulb dark. The woman wiped her hands on her pants. "Which way to the garage?" Her voice sounded too loud in the cramped space. From behind the door they'd just come through, something heavy thumped against the metal. The silent guest turned the flashlight away quickly, but not before the beam caught the door shaking in its frame. "Left corner," the house manager whispered, pointing toward a narrow service tunnel barely visible behind a cluster of pipes. "Follow the yellow markings." The woman moved first, her fingers tracing faded yellow arrows painted on the concrete floor. The silent guest kept the flashlight aimed low, watching as their shadows stretched long and distorted across the boiler room walls. Somewhere above them, the mansion groaned, not from the storm this time, but from something moving through its halls with deliberate, unnatural weight. The house manager paused mid-step, his head tilting slightly as if listening to something the others couldn't hear. The flashlight beam flickered again, casting jagged shadows across the pipes as the silent guest adjusted his grip. "We should keep moving," he murmured, but the woman had already stopped ahead of them, her back rigid against the wall. A sharp metallic ping echoed through the boiler room, like something tapping against a pipe 3 floors above. The house manager's fingers tightened around the flashlight when the silent guest handed it to him. "Don't stop," he breathed. "Don't look back." The woman's foot hit something soft and yielding in the dark, a rolled-up maintenance mat, half blocking the tunnel entrance. She sidestepped it without breaking stride, her pulse hammering in her throat as another distant thud vibrated through the floor. The silent guest bumped into her when she stopped abruptly at a junction. 2 narrow passages branched off ahead, both marked with identical yellow arrows pointing in opposite directions. "Which one?" she whispered, fingers gripping the pipe beside her for balance. The house manager edged past them, angling the flashlight downward. The left tunnel's markings were newer, the paint barely chipped. The right tunnel's arrows had layers of grime worked into the cracks. He jerked his chin left without speaking. From somewhere behind them came the sound of metal twisting under pressure, not the sharp snap of breaking bolts, but the slow, persistent groan of something bending what shouldn't bend. The silent guest grabbed the woman's wrist and pulled her forward into the left tunnel before she could turn around. The house manager kept the flashlight angled at their feet, casting just enough light to see the yellow markings but not enough to illuminate the walls or ceiling. His breathing stayed steady, but his knuckles whitened around the flashlight's grip. A draft pushed past them, carrying the faint scent of wet concrete and something else stale, like air from a space too long closed off. The woman coughed once into her sleeve, then clamped her mouth shut when she heard movement behind them pause. The tunnel curved sharply left, forcing them single file. The house manager stopped suddenly when his light caught something on the floor, a single work glove, palm up, fingers curled inward like it had been dropped mid-motion. He stepped over it without comment. The silent guest touched the woman's elbow. "We're moving too slow," he whispered. His breath fogged in the cold air between them. From further back in the tunnel, something clattered, a metal tool hitting concrete, rolling until it hit a wall. The house manager didn't turn around, just picked up his pace, his shoes scuffing against grit on the floor. The woman pressed a hand against the tunnel wall for balance. Her fingertips came away damp. "Garage should be close now," she said, more to herself than the others. The house manager's flashlight beam wavered as they rounded another bend. Ahead, the yellow arrows pointed to a steel door with a push bar. He didn't speed up. Something shifted in the darkness behind them, not footsteps, but something dragging against concrete in uneven intervals. The silent guest turned his head slightly but kept walking. The woman reached the door first. The push bar didn't budge when she pressed down. "It's stuck," she said, trying again with both hands. The house manager shone the light on the mechanism. Rust flaked off under her fingers. The silent guest pressed his ear against the steel door. "I hear something on the other side," he whispered. "Like humming." The house manager frowned, tilting his head. The sound was faint but unmistakable, electrical, mechanical, but not like any garage equipment they'd heard before. Behind them, the dragging noise stopped abruptly. The flashlight beam flickered, casting shadows that stretched down the tunnel walls too thin and too long. The woman stopped breathing for a second, her fingers still gripping the push bar. The house manager exhaled slowly through his nose. "Stand back," he murmured. He braced his shoulder against the door and pushed once, twice, before the hinges groaned and gave way. Beyond the door, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating rows of parked cars and the faint outline of an exit sign in the distance. The woman didn't move right away. Her fingers hovered near the doorframe as she stared into the garage. "That hum," she whispered. "It's not the generator." The sound was too rhythmic, too deliberate, like something breathing through machinery from the tunnel behind them. A pipe creaked under sudden pressure. The silent guest grabbed the woman's sleeve and pulled her through the doorway, his other hand reaching back for the house manager. "Don't stop," he urged, though his own steps faltered when he saw the garage's far wall, where something dark and glistening seeped from a ventilation grate. The house manager shoved the door shut behind them, but it didn't latch. Through the gap, the tunnel's darkness pulsed faintly, as if something were shifting just beyond sight. The humming grew louder, synchronizing with the flicker of the overhead lights. The woman's breath hitched. "We're not alone down here." The silent guest dragged his gaze from the oozing grate and focused on the exit sign 50 yards ahead. The cars parked between them suddenly felt like obstacles, their polished surfaces reflecting warped shapes that shouldn't exist. He stepped forward, then froze as a metallic screech tore through the garage from above. The house manager's flashlight beam darted upward, catching the ventilation ducts trembling in their brackets. Dust rained down as something heavy moved through them, bending the metal inward with each lurching advance. The woman grabbed the silent guest's wrist. "Run," she mouthed, already pulling him toward the nearest car row. Behind them, the door they'd just come through groaned on its hinges, not from wind or settling, but from steady, deliberate pressure. The house manager didn't look back. He kept the flashlight trained on the path ahead, its beam slicing through the garage's greasy air as they weaved between vehicles. The exit sign glowed brighter now, its red letters buzzing with promise. The humming sharpened into a mechanical keen, vibrating up through the concrete floor. The silent guest risked one glance over his shoulder, just long enough to see the garage door they'd entered through now stood wide open, framing a darkness that rippled like water against an unseen current. Then the nearest overhead light exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging half the garage into shadow. The woman stumbled against a sedan's fender, her fingers leaving smears on the polished hood. "The exit's blocked," she hissed, pointing to where a service cart had toppled across their path, its contents spilled like teeth across the concrete. The house manager veered left without hesitation, aiming for a maintenance alcove where a janitor's closet stood ajar. Something metallic clattered to the ground behind them, too heavy to be a tool, too purposeful to be accidental. The silent guest grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, its weight unfamiliar in his hands. "Keep moving toward the stairwell," he muttered, though the words tasted like a lie. The exit stairs were too far, the garage too vast. From the alcove's shadows came a wet, clicking sound, not machinery now, but something organic testing the air. The house manager's flashlight beam trembled as he backed away, catching the barest glimpse of something retreating up the wall with too many joints. The woman pressed a hand to her mouth. The silent guest tightened his grip on the extinguisher. None of them spoke. None of them breathed. The exit sign flickered again, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the rows of cars, a garage door motor whirred to life unexpectedly, its chain rattling as the heavy metal panel began to rise. Cold storm air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and something else, something sweetly rotten beneath the ozone. The house manager's shoulders tensed. "That's not the main door," he whispered. "That's the delivery bay." The silent guest inched forward, extinguisher raised. Through the windshield of a nearby SUV, he saw reflections move where no one stood, elongated shapes pooling across the concrete like spilled ink given purpose. His throat tightened. The woman tugged his sleeve urgently, pointing to a service staircase tucked behind a support column. Its metal railing vibrated faintly, as if something heavy had just passed by unseen. Then the humming stopped. The garage lights stabilized. Even the storm outside seemed to pause mid-breath. In that impossible stillness, the house manager's tablet, long thought dead, emitted a single, piercing tone from his pocket. The screen lit up automatically, displaying 3 words in bold red letters: **** door open now ****. The silent guest met the woman's wide-eyed stare. They ran. The delivery bay door was fully raised now, revealing nothing but rain-slicked pavement and swirling fog. No figures. No movement. Just an empty space where escape should have been impossible. The woman's shoes skidded against wet concrete as she hesitated. "This isn't right," she breathed. The house manager gripped his still-lit tablet tighter. The screen now displayed a live feed of the mansion's front gate, swinging open on its own down the long driveway. A gust of wind carried the scent of jasmine through the garage, impossible at midnight in November. The silent guest stepped forward first, extinguisher still raised, as something clattered softly in the maintenance alcove behind them. When he turned, the tools were neatly rearranged on their hooks. The spilled service cart stood upright. Even the exploded light fixture shone whole and unbroken overhead. From the depths of the mansion above came a final, distant beep, the security system powering down normally for the first time all night. The house manager exhaled sharply, staring at his now functional tablet. The display showed every camera feed restored, every door locked, every room empty. The woman reached for the silent guest's hand. Her fingers were warm, alive. The storm outside broke into gentle rain as they stepped through the delivery bay together, into a world that felt inexplicably, unbearably ordinary. The garage lights flickered once behind them, then stabilized completely. A forgotten radio crackled to life near the janitor's closet, playing static-laced big band music from another era. The silent guest turned back just in time to see the delivery door lower smoothly on its own, sealing the mansion away again with a hydraulic sigh. The house manager's tablet screen went dark. The woman didn't let go of his hand down the driveway. The front gate stood wide open. Beyond it, Streetlights glowed steadily through the rain, no flicker, no distortion. Just yellow pools of light on wet pavement leading toward town. The house manager ran a hand through his hair, staring at the mansion's facade. Every window shone dark and still. The east balcony door swung gently in the breeze, its shattered glass now whole and gleaming. Somewhere in the distance, a car engine turned over. The sound was mundane, comforting. The woman took a step forward, then another, pulling the silent guest with her. The house manager hesitated only a moment longer before following, his shoes scuffing against gravel still damp from the storm. None of them spoke. None of them looked back. The mansion's shadow stretched long behind them, perfect and undisturbed in the pre-dawn light. A paper coffee cup tumbled down the empty street ahead, caught in a gust of wind. The woman shivered not from cold, but from the sudden sense of dislocation, as if they'd stepped into a scene painted just for them. The silent guest squeezed her hand, his palm clammy. Somewhere nearby, a sprinkler system hissed to life, spraying arcs of water across manicured lawns in perfect synchronization. Too perfect. The house manager checked his watch, then frowned at its motionless hands. The first birdsong of morning split the silence, a robin's call, clear and bright from a maple tree down the block. Except the tree stood leafless and black against the fading night. The sound came again, identical in pitch and rhythm. Recorded. The silent guest stopped walking abruptly, his breath fogging in air that suddenly smelled of ozone again. The woman followed his gaze to the storm drain beside them, where water swirled counterclockwise against all reason down the street. The car engine revved higher, a sleek black sedan pulling away from the curb with its headlights off. The house manager's tablet buzzed to life in his pocket, the screen flashing once before going dark again. The woman's phone, long dead, chimed softly with a single notification she'd never set. *welcome home. The silent guest turned toward the mansion one last time. Every window reflected the same impossible scene, their own backs, walking away, forever caught in that moment between escape and whatever came next. The sprinklers stopped mid-cycle. A newspaper fluttered against the silent guest's leg, today's date, but the headlines were all wrong. Local man wins lottery he never played. The house manager picked it up, his fingers leaving smudges on ink that shouldn't have been wet. The woman reached for it, but the paper dissolved into ash between his fingers, carried away on a wind that smelled faintly of jasmine again from the storm drain. The swirling water changed direction abruptly. Something glinted beneath the surface, a house key on a familiar fob. The silent guest knelt, but the water receded too fast, leaving concrete dry as bone. The house manager's watch began ticking again, each second-hand movement perfectly synchronized to the distant chime of a clock tower that didn't exist in this town. The black sedan turned the corner without signaling. Its taillights reflected red in puddles that hadn't been there a moment ago. The woman's phone buzzed again, a voicemail from her own number, time-stamped 3 hours from now. The silent guest didn't let go of her hand. The mansion's gates swung shut behind them with a click too final to be accidental. Sprinklers started up again 3 houses down, each jet of water freezing midair before falling in perfect synchronization. The house manager's tablet screen lit up with a single notification. Memory cache cleared. The silent guest watched his breath fog in air that smelled suddenly of bleach and old books. A streetlight flickered ahead, casting their shadows in the wrong direction from someone's porch. A radio tuned itself to static before resolving into a weather report for yesterday. The woman's shoes left no prints on the wet sidewalk. The house manager's watch hands began moving backward, second by impossible second. Somewhere beyond the tree line, the mansion's security system emitted one last, fading beep. The silent guest finally spoke. His words came out distorted, like a recording played at the wrong speed. "We're not." The rest dissolved into static. The woman squeezed his hand tighter as the streetlights ahead dimmed one by one, plunging the neighborhood into a darkness that felt older than night. The house manager's tablet screen cracked suddenly from edge to edge, spiderwebbing across a reflection that wasn't his own from the storm drain. Water began rising against gravity in thin, twisting strands, not flowing, but assembling itself into shapes too angular to be natural. The black sedan rolled past again from the opposite direction, its windshield reflecting 3 empty seats where passengers should have been. The woman's phone screen lit up with a single word, almost. The sprinklers froze mid-cycle again, their arcs of water hardening into icy sculptures that hummed at a frequency just beyond hearing. The silent guest's shadow stretched too long behind him, detaching from his feet to slide toward the mansion gates now swinging open once more. The house manager's watch hands spun wildly before stopping at 3:07, the exact time the security system had first malfunctioned. A newspaper page fluttered down, landing at their feet with yesterday's weather report circled in red. The forecast read, "Clear skies above them." The first stars of morning winked out one by one, leaving only the mansion's windows glowing faintly through the trees, each pane reflecting the same impossible scene of 3 figures standing exactly where they now stood, forever caught between one step and the next. The woman's phone buzzed again, a calendar notification for an appointment she'd never scheduled. Final inspection, 3:07 a.m. The house manager's watch began ticking backward, its hands moving in perfect sync with the mansion's security system rebooting somewhere behind them, emitting that same familiar 3-beep sequence from hours ago. The silent guest opened his mouth, but his words came out as white noise, like a radio tuned between stations from the storm drain. The rising water strands twisted into cursive letters suspended midair. *welcome home*. The black sedan rolled past a third time, its headlights now illuminating the mansion's front doors swinging shut on their own. The sprinkler ice sculptures began melting upward, droplets defying gravity to reform in the pipes above. The woman's shadow stretched toward the mansion gates independently, its edges blurring like wet ink on absorbent paper. The house manager's tablet screen flickered to life one last time, displaying a live feed of the 3 of them standing in the garage, except in the video, they weren't running. They were perfectly still, staring at the screen with expressions of dawning horror as something unseen moved just beyond the camera's frame. The silent guest's reflection in a puddle blinked at him with eyes that weren't his own. Somewhere, a clock struck 3:07. The mansion's lights went out. The woman's phone screen illuminated suddenly, casting a sickly glow across her face as an automated voice announced, "System reboot complete." The words echoed from the storm drain, the car radio, and the mansion's intercom simultaneously. The silent guest's shadow detached completely from his body and slid back toward the delivery bay door, which was now wide open again despite the house manager having watched it seal shut moments before. A child's laughter rang out from the mansion's third-floor window, a sound none of them had heard all night. The house manager's watch hand spun faster, its face cracking as the numbers rearranged themselves into symbols no clock should bear. The streetlights overhead began swaying gently, though there was no wind, their beams carving arcs of light that revealed footprints leading back toward the mansion, fresh ones, still filling with rainwater despite no one having walked there. The woman's phone displayed a single sentence in bold text, "*You never left." The silent guest's mouth moved soundlessly as the pavement beneath their feet softened like wet clay, the yellow dividing lines of the road stretching upward like tendrils toward their ankles. From the mansion's balcony, a familiar voice called out the house manager's own, but the words were in a language none of them recognized. The delivery bay door creaked shut with finality, cutting off the sound of big band music still playing inside. Sprinkler heads rotated toward them in unison, spraying arcs of water that froze midair into jagged ice sculptures resembling grasping hands. The black sedan rolled backward up the street without a driver, its windshield wipers moving in time with the house manager's still ticking watch. The silent guest's reflection in a puddle reached up to meet him, fingers breaking the surface tension without causing a single ripple. Somewhere beyond the trees, the mansion's front gate latched itself with a click that echoed like a gunshot in the unnatural stillness. The storm drain exhaled a gust of warm, jasmine-scented air that carried with it a single playing card, the Queen of Hearts with their faces superimposed in faded ink. The streetlights dimmed as one, plunging the neighborhood into a twilight where the only illumination came from the mansion's windows, each pane now displaying a different moment from their evening. The living room before the storm, the kitchen before the scraping began, the utility room before the drop into darkness. The woman's phone vibrated with a text from her own number. "Look behind you." A child's shadow moved across the mansion's third-floor window, too tall, too thin, its arms ending in points rather than fingers. The pavement cracked in a perfect spiral around their feet, revealing black water beneath that reflected nothing at all. The house manager's watch chimed 3:07 again as its hands melted into mercury, dripping onto asphalt that hissed and steamed. From the storm drain came 3 echoing knocks, perfectly spaced, followed by the sound of something heavy being dragged up toward the surface. The woman's phone screen shattered suddenly, glass shards hovering midair to form the shape of a key before clattering to the ground. The silent guest's shadow peeled away completely now, slithering back toward the mansion's gates while his actual body remained frozen in place, his lips forming silent words that fogged the air in reverse. Down the street, the black sedan's doors opened one by one with metallic sighs, Though no one emerged, just an endless loop of the same jazz standard playing from its stereo, each repetition slightly slower than the last. Ice spread across the road in geometric patterns, branching like veins toward their shoes. The mansion's security system emitted a garbled transmission, half beep, half human sigh, as every window darkened simultaneously except one. The east balcony door, which now stood ajar with an impossible view of the living room couch they'd vacated hours ago. The house manager's tablet screen displayed a single line of code scrolling endlessly * memory overflow. From the storm drain rose a sound like 100 pages turning at once, followed by the wet snap of a book shutting. The silent guest finally broke free of his paralysis, grabbing the woman's wrist just as the pavement beneath them liquefied completely. The last thing they saw before the street swallowed them whole was the mansion's front door swinging open, revealing their own silhouettes already inside, waving goodbye with hands that dripped black ink onto the welcome mat. The house manager's watch exploded into gears and springs mid-tick, each tiny component freezing in midair as if suspended in amber. He reached for the floating pieces with fingers that passed through them like smoke, his reflection in the puddle below showing him gripping nothing at all. Somewhere above, a streetlight bulb burst in a shower of glass that fell upward, tinkling like wind chimes made of bone. The woman's phone screen reassembled itself from shards mid-fall, displaying a live feed of the three of them standing exactly where they'd been 5 minutes prior, only now their images were aging rapidly in reverse, faces smoothing into childhood before pixelating out entirely. The mansion's east balcony door creaked shut with finality, severing the last tether to the impossible scene inside. Deep underground where the storm drain met unseen tunnels, 3 pairs of footsteps echoed, one set dragging slightly, one barefoot, one in polished dress shoes that left no prints at all. Above them, the black sedan's headlights flickered once more before shorting out completely, plunging the street into a darkness that smelled distinctly of jasmine and freshly printed newspapers. Somewhere beyond perception, a security system beeped 3 times in perfect synchronization with a clock striking 3:07 for the last time. The house manager's cracked tablet screen displayed a single line of text that scrolled endlessly, estimated time to destination. Beside it, the woman's reassembled phone showed their reflections aging forward again, except their eyes remained pupilless and white, mouths moving in perfect unison with the mansion's intercom playing their final conversation backward. The silent guest's wristwatch, now embedded in the pavement, ticked erratically between yesterday and tomorrow from the mansion's chimney. Black smoke coiled downward instead of rising, twisting into cursive letters that spelled almost home before dispersing across the lawn in the shape of 3 running figures. The storm drain grate vibrated with the sound of something large being dragged upward, not scraping now, but squelching wetly like soaked carpet being pulled across concrete. The streetlights all dimmed simultaneously, their bulbs filling with dark water that dripped upward toward the sky in the space between 2 ticks of the broken watch. The trio's shadows detached completely, one sliding toward the mansion's 3rd-floor window where the child's silhouette waited, one sinking into the pavement's liquefied surface, and one simply ceasing to exist with a sound like a page being torn from reality. The east balcony door swung open again, revealing nothing but an endless corridor of identical living rooms stretching into the distance, each furnished with the same couch where their earlier selves still sat, rubbing their temples as the storm began anew. The woman's phone screen turned black except for 3 pulsing dots in the center, not loading, but counting down in perfect sync with the house manager's watch gears reassembling themselves midair into the shape of a key. Behind them, the black sedan's headlights flickered on to illuminate words written across the wet asphalt in backward handwriting. "Turn around." The silent guest's mouth opened in a silent scream as his reflection in the puddle reached up to press a finger to its lips. From the storm drain came a sound like 100 radios tuning to the same station at once, resolving into a single clear note, the mansion's doorbell ringing 3 times despite there being no button or wiring left intact. The pavement hardened abruptly around their ankles, trapping them in poses of mid-stride as the streetlights above swung wildly, casting strobe-like flashes that revealed their faces aging and de-aging with each pulse of light. The mansion's chimney smoke curled into a perfect question mark that hovered over the rooftop before dissolving into the shape of 3 running figures, except this time, they were running toward the house. The house manager's reassembled watch began chiming a nursery rhyme none of them recognized, its hands now pointing to numerals that didn't exist on any clock face. The woman's phone screen displayed a single sentence that scrolled endlessly, "You have always lived here." Behind them, the black sedan's doors slammed shut one by one in perfect synchronization with the mansion's windows lighting up floor by floor, first the attic, then the 3rd story, then the 2nd, until only the ground floor remained dark. Somewhere beyond perception, a security system beeped 3 times in a rhythm that matched the silent guest's accelerating heartbeat. The pavement beneath their feet rippled like disturbed water, revealing glimpses of another version of the street beneath its surface, this one bathed in golden afternoon light with children playing where the storm drain now stood. The mansion's front gate swung open with a sigh, releasing the scent of freshly baked bread that clashed horribly with the jasmine-heavy air. From the east balcony, a single playing card fluttered down, the Joker with their faces merged into one smudged visage only to burst into blue flame inches above the silent guest's outstretched hand. Ice spread across the road in fractal patterns that spelled out "Come inside" in angular script, each letter cracking audibly as it formed. The woman's shadow, now several feet ahead of her body, gestured urgently toward the mansion's front door while her physical hand remained frozen at her side. Somewhere in the trees, a wind chime made of silverware tinkled a familiar jazz standard in reverse, its notes pulling at their memories like fishhooks in gray matter. The house manager's tablet screen lit up with a live feed of the 3 of them already standing in the foyer, waving at the camera with hands that passed through solid objects. From the storm drain rose 3 perfect soap bubbles, each reflecting a different impossible scene. One showed the mansion engulfed in flames that didn't burn, one displayed the trio laughing around a dinner table set for 4, and the last revealed only an empty hallway where their shadows moved independently of any light source. The black sedan's headlights dimmed to the exact luminosity of the mansion's attic window as its radio switched to a news broadcast from 1937 describing a missing persons case that matched their exact descriptions. As the first soap bubble popped, the silent guest's voice finally returned, but the words came out in the house manager's exact cadence, saying, "We should check the east wing again." The woman's phone screen reassembled into a mirror that reflected not her face, but the living room couch where they'd sat hours earlier, now occupied by three vaguely human-shaped formations of dust that arranged themselves into familiar postures. A single raindrop fell upward from the pavement to strike her cheek, warm as bathwater and smelling faintly of chlorine, leaving behind a residue that spelled "Look UP" in delicate cursive across her skin. The house manager's watch hands began orbiting the face like tiny moons, their shadows casting tiny eclipses that somehow darkened the entire street for precisely 3 seconds at a time. From the mansion's chimney floated a child's paper airplane made of newspaper dated tomorrow, its flight path curving unnaturally to circle the trio's heads before coming to rest at the silent guest's feet. When he reached for it, the paper unfolded itself violently, revealing a crude crayon drawing of the mansion with all its windows blacked out except one, the east balcony door, where a stick figure with too many fingers waved cheerfully. The streetlights began humming at a frequency that vibrated their fillings, casting light that erased their shadows completely while somehow making the silhouette of the mansion's weather-vane stretch across 4 houses. The pavement beneath them developed the consistency of stiff gelatin, each step forward requiring immense effort while leaving no indentation behind. The house manager's tablet screen now displayed only the word "run" in flashing red letters, but the battery percentage counted upward instead of down: 97%, 98%, 99% as the device grew unnaturally warm in his hands. Somewhere beyond the trees, the mansion's front door clicked open just wide enough for a slice of golden light to fall across the sidewalk, illuminating a single set of footprints leading inside that matched each of their shoe sizes simultaneously.